Surfing is one of the most popular sports in the world, but for those of us who don't know how to surf, where do we start? What boards do we ride? What beach do we surf at? There's a lot that we need to learn. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of The Surfer's Journey. In today's episode, I'm going to teach you how to surf, everything that you need to get started. Sometimes it can be expensive and time consuming to get all that information, and often it takes many lessons to get drip-fed information. But today I'm going to give you everything that you need in one video. We've got 8 minutes, so let's get to it. Deciding on what beach you're going to surf at is a really hard question, especially for those of us who have never surfed before. So we need to go to someone who has that knowledge, and the best place to go is your local surf shop. They should have good knowledge of your local surf breaks and where's appropriate for a learner to go surfing. We want to make sure that we're surfing somewhere that's safe. We're looking for a sand bottom break, not reef, not rock. We want to make sure that the beach is pretty safe. We don't want to have rips and strong currents out there. You want to make sure that once you get to the beach, that the conditions on that day are safe and appropriate for you. Once again, ask another surfer at the beach that day to make sure that the conditions are safe and appropriate for a learner. And to keep ourselves a little bit safer, we always want to go surfing with a friend. Let's have a look at some surfboard familiarization. This is the top of the surfboard, also known as the deck. It's where we put our feet and also where we put the wax. This is the nose of the surfboard. Notice how you've got this piece of wood, that's called the stringer. We'll come back to that later. And this is the tail. You can also see the leg rope attachment there. This is the bottom of a surfboard. Here you can see the fin. Now there are a lot of different fin setups out there. Don't worry about it. As long as your surfboard has a fin in the bottom, whether it's 3, 4, 2, that's all good for now. Another important step is that your surfboard has wax on it. This will stop us from sliding off the board. Also, make sure that you have a leg rope attached to your board. You put the leg rope on your back foot. Now you might wonder which leg goes forward and which leg goes behind. Well, generally your dominant leg, the one that you would say kick a soccer ball with, they tend to be at the back, and that's the leg we want to put the leg rope on. There are so many surfboards on the market, and it's really hard to know which one we should use. But the board that I'm going to recommend is a foam board. Basically, it's a long board that looks something like this, except it's made out of a foam construction. It's softer and they're very user friendly. I would recommend a long, big foam board. Before we go out into the water, we want to run through a routine. We want to draw a surfboard on the ground and practice popping up. This will help get your muscles firing, ready for the water. Practice paddling, practice putting your hands on the deck, lifting up your chest, and then popping up to your feet. Remember how I mentioned about that stringer earlier? This is where it becomes really important. When it comes to feet positioning, you want to try and have that stringer going through the middle of your feet. And our feet should be about shoulder width apart. And we're aiming to have our front foot in the middle of the surfboard. Once we make it out into the surf, we only need to be in about waist deep water. This is plenty. We want to make sure that the nose of the board is facing out to sea like this. To negotiate the oncoming waves, all you need to do is lift up the nose and they'll roll underneath. Next, we need to know what kind of wave we're looking for. We're looking for the broken part of the wave. We're looking for the white water. We don't want to catch steep unbroken waves initially because it's much harder. So we just want that fluffy white water. Once you've seen that oncoming white water, give yourself enough time to jump on your board, adjust your position, and then paddle hard. And don't stop paddling until you feel the wave pick you up and push you along. You'll know that that's happened because you'll feel an acceleration as the wave picks you up and pushes you along. Once you get onto your surfboard, you want to make sure that you're not too far forward or too far back on the board when you're paddling. We need to be somewhere in the middle. And this is something that can only be learned through experience. Also remember to keep your legs together. This will give you a lot more control when you're paddling. Initially, it helps just to practice catching a wave on your belly. And once you're confident catching waves, then you can move into the pop-up. Here we see the surfer paddling hard. Now she's not going to stop paddling until she knows that the waves picked her up, and she's really good at this. At this point, she knows the waves picked her up, so she puts her hands underneath her shoulders on the deck of the board. She then lifts her chest up. This gives her room to get her legs through like so. Notice how her hands are still on the board. She doesn't release until her legs are up. At this point, you can see she's releasing her hands and she's going to get low, looking and pointing to where she wants to go. Usually the pop-up takes lots and lots of practice, so don't worry if you don't get it straight away. One thing to remember is that because we're quite shallow in that waist-deep water, when you do fall off your board, make sure that you dismount appropriately. Let's have a look at one more example. The surfer paddles hard, doesn't stop paddling until the waves picked him up. At that stage, hands on the deck underneath his shoulders, lifts his chest up, pops his legs through. Now ideally we want to do that in one smooth motion. However, it might take time for that, so don't be surprised if it's a little bit sloppy in the early days. That's okay, we can work on this later on. And once we're up and riding, we want to look and point to where we want to go. Remember, we want a slight bend in our knees and a lower center of gravity. This will help give us more balance and control. Surfing an unbroken wave is one of the best feelings in surfing, and the best place to start with this is once you're comfortable catching those whitewater waves. Once you can do that, then I would recommend paddling hard into these unbroken waves. Put simply, we need to paddle harder and we need to pop up faster. And once we do that, just focus on going straight. We take off on the unbroken wave and just go straight initially. And once you get comfortable with that, then we can progress into taking off on an angle. And this is how we progress, paddling into a wave on a slight angle and then taking off and trying to ride an unbroken wave, and then making slight changes in direction like this. Obviously I was heading towards the right, but to make a direction change, I simply change where I'm looking and pointing. So I look to the left and I point to the left, and you can see my direction changed. And then as you progress, you'll find that those changes in direction happen faster and more aggressively. And then in the future, it's totally up to you where you go with your surfing. You might choose to cruise on longboards. You might choose to surf smaller fishy boards like me. The world is your oyster, and there are so many different varieties of surfboards out there, and so many different ways that you can approach a wave. And that's what makes surfing really unique. And as they say, only a surfer knows the feeling. Guys, thanks for watching the video today. I hope that now you understand everything that you need to focus on to learn how to surf. And the more time you can spend out there practicing, the faster you'll progress and the faster you'll be up and riding. Remember to like the video and comment below to let me know what other tutorials you'd like to see.